So you're at stage 2. You started working on gut health, reducing inflammation, but you feel stuck without a clear plan or results so far. So you might have reached out around eczema, allergies, or asthma. First of all, if I haven't met you before, I'm Dr. Melissa Raymond. It is a pleasure to meet you. I'm a holistic eczema allergy coach, and I work with parents of kids with eczema, allergies, and asthma, as well as adults with these conditions or going through topical steroid withdrawal to really help them clear the inflammation and clear their symptoms. So see a real reduction in symptoms with the work that we do together. Primarily the focus I focus on is this last bit here, which I'll talk about in this short video today, but it makes the biggest difference in your symptoms or your child's symptoms. And that is why I start here in this particular area. And I don't tend to start with food changes or any other kind of changes. I always start with this biggest component, which is one of the biggest drivers of inflammation in the body. So what we've been told about eczema, allergies, and asthma is not 100% the truth. It's not the full picture. These conditions are a group of symptoms. They're all linked. It's called the allergy march. You might have a little look up about it in the research, but essentially people with eczema, allergies, asthma tend to have one or more of these conditions. So you might have a child with eczema who then develops allergies or at the same time has allergies or food intolerances, and then a few years down the track also develops asthma. So they're sort of this triad of conditions. What we know from the research is that there is inflammation here and also impaired gut health, and it is a cycle. So just because your child has poor gut health, they have eczema, allergies, or asthma, they will have impaired gut health, or if you're an adult, same goes. But it is not, the gut health isn't the cause of it. There's things that factor into why people have gut health issues, and it's a bit of a cycle and interlinked. However, working on this bottom piece of the puzzle shifts the inflammation and the symptoms the quickest that I've found. So many of my clients can see improvements even in a couple of weeks without having to overhaul their whole diet or their whole life. So most important thing to know is inflammation causes symptoms. Drawn a little bucket here. And this is our inflammatory bucket, or our capacity to hold inflammation in the body and process inflammation. And so lots of things contribute to inflammation, but we all have different capacities for inflammation. So generally a bigger person, an adult will have a greater capacity for inflammation than a younger person or a smaller person. However, our capacity can change day to day, and it is very, very individualized because of all these different things. So one of the things that contributes to inflammation is poor sleep. So if we're not getting enough sleep, which is pretty common with some of these conditions, up all night itching, really, really stressed about it, stressed about life and how to help our children, that will be an effect adding into the inflammatory bucket. And when the inflammatory bucket gets full, that is when we start to hit the symptom threshold and we start to see symptoms in a big way. So sleep contributes. Food, what we eat, what we are hydrating with, what we are consuming from a fluids perspective. If it's a whole lot of soft drink or diet soft drink, that's really impairing our gut health. It is a bit of a cycle. Artificial sweeteners, food additives, processed foods, hydrogenated vegetable oils, all of those things will negatively affect our gut health. Another thing up here can also impact on this is medications. So we know that a lot of medications will impact on gut health. When we have impaired gut health, that will cause inflammation. So we can increase or reduce the amount of inflammation in our bucket by just what we're eating and drinking, okay? So our mental health, is intricately linked with gut health. It's called the gut-brain axis. If you wanted to go down that rabbit hole, don't suggest you do that at this point in time. But what we're eating and drinking and what we do for our gut health will impact on our mental health. But stress is a big factor here. What we are consuming from a mental health perspective, what are we seeing? What are we watching? Are we watching the news, which is very, very fear-based? Are we watching Are we reading things that are really frightening us and putting us into a chronic state of inflammation, that fight or flight response? Right? Inflammation, this chronic fight or flight response our nervous system is running in the background 24 hours a day, will cause inflammation. We know this. So it's just a physiological symptom, a physiological state where if we're in this fight, flight, or freeze response, our body doesn't prioritize healing. It prioritizes survival, and that is not healing the skin. That is about getting out of that place where we're in. So running away from that tiger, pretending that we're dead to survive, or being in a place that we can fight the tiger. In that state, our body is not primed for healing, it is primed for survival. And so this really contributes to this stress and inflammation in our body. The environment we're in, so if our home has lots of chemicals in there, so those, wall plug-in sprays, or we've got lots of cleaning chemicals, laundry detergents, fragrances, radiation, things like sleeping with a modem nearby or a baby monitor, one of those wireless baby monitors, they're all affecting our bodies and our children's bodies and contributing to inflammation. Mold is a big one in the house. So if you're at stage 2, I would be considering mold as being an issue. If you're already looking at gut health and other ways to reduce inflammation, please check for mold. If you suspect it is mold, I know it's a very expensive process, but if you're in a place where you can test properly and get it remediated properly, not just by any old company, and I encourage you to use building biologists in the process to make sure that it is all eradicated. But that is a really big common factor that I'm seeing in my clients. Exercise, we can increase or reduce inflammation in our bodies with exercise, and we can also then kind of empty out the bucket as well in supporting our detoxification processes in the body. Genetics plays a little part, but it's not a big piece of the puzzle in inflammation here. We can address a lot of these other things without just saying, oh, it's genetic, there's nothing we can do about it, right? But this big piece of the puzzle here is stress, and this chronic stress. And so this is where I start with my one-on-one clients or clients in the Nourish and Heal collective, where we are addressing this several times a week and as a little practice every day to reduce stress. And can you see if we're reducing this stress, which causes inflammation, running in the background 24/7, this is something that that stays with us, as opposed to how much sleep we're having or food that can change day to day. Our exercise can change day to day, right? But with this stress that runs in the background, and I know many of you have reached out to me and said you're really anxious, or you're stressed and you're overwhelmed, you're angry, all of those things are really, really common with eczema, allergies and asthma, and feeling this way about these conditions and not being able to help your child. But this also then contributes to the inflammation, not only in your body, but you know when that really angry person walks into the room and you just feel it, right? Our kids will feel our stress as well. So if we can help reduce our own stress, that will have a massive impact on our children as well. So one thing I will mention is around the genetic stress that gets passed on through the generations, which is why that sometimes our kids who are really, really little develop eczema, allergies and asthma at such a young age. So they may not have been through anything terribly traumatic per se, although there are some things that can happen around birth, and it can be traumatic birth that can contribute to eczema, allergies and asthma. That fight, flight, freeze response is a protective response. It starts an immune response and it can present physically as eczema, allergies or asthma. But I just want you to think about this. So I want you to just put down whatever you're doing. If you're doing something else at the same time, just hear this. We are an egg in our mother's ovaries when she's a fetus in our maternal grandmother's womb. So half of us, the egg part of us, was around when our grandmother was pregnant with our mum. Okay? Physically present. So any stress or trauma that happened at that time can be and is imprinted onto us. right? So it does have an effect. And if stressful at a time that wasn't able to be processed by our grandmother, then it can present as physical symptoms in us. And same goes for our children along that generational line. Typically more the maternal line, but of course, you know, there's both sides of the parentage that do come into play here, absolutely. So this stress gets passed on, and if it's not dealt with or processed in the body of our grandmother at the time, then it gets stored, and it gets stored in our cells, and that is what happens with this background stress or this chronic stress. And it is exactly why when I target this with my clients, first and foremost in our sessions, that the symptoms start to reside beautifully. This is also the reason this chronic stress in the background that's running in our subconscious 24/7. It is also why you've tried lots of things and they haven't worked. Or maybe they've worked for a period of time and you think, yes, this is it, I found it, only to relapse again. Right, this is exactly why, because the inflammatory bucket, this is always in the background, but then you've got all of these other things that fill it too. So when you empty out this bucket with all this sludge that's at the bottom sitting in our bodies, held in our bodies, the other things that you've been doing, they stick. And it's easier mentally and just physically in your body to make changes around, okay, actually, I am going to cut out the dairy this week because I just feel like I can do it now. Whereas before it felt really overwhelming and there was no way you were going to do it and everything was just too hard. So this has a multiplier effect here when we work on this first. It has a really good effect on sleep. It has a really good effect on digestion as well. It can get the bowels moving. Constipation is another reason for inflammation. I'm not going to go into that today, but it has a really big effect on all of these things, mental health, psychological state. So your stage 2 focus is to reduce the inflammation. And we can do that through any of the number of methods that I've just briefly talked about here. So having a look at what we're eating, do a food diary audit, have a look at what you're drinking. Is it chlorinated water that is can impair gut health, or is it filtered water? Are we filtering out those chemicals, heavy metals, and fluoride and chlorine in our water that we're consuming? Can we do some of these other things as far as, getting the body moving and starting to exercise to support our lymphatic system, to help with detoxification? So reducing inflammation, first place I would look would be to do a food diary and audit that and just have a look at what am I eating for gut health? Am I doing things right there? But stress is the real key here. And yes, absolutely around saying no to things, but how do you do that for a child or a little baby who has these conditions? So it's really dealing with stress at a cellular level. So if you like, after you've watched this video, and if you would like a couple of other resources that I can send through to you, please let me know. So these will help to reduce stress at a cellular level, and you do them if you've got a really little one who can't do them themselves, you do them for yourself, and that will help them. Seen many clients working with the parents, the symptoms start to clear in the child. So let me know if you'd like that. I have a whole lot of specific, very short key strategies to address each of these areas and more in the Nourish and Heal bundle. So if you'd like access to that, let me know. And if you want to work with me one-on-one as a private client to really clear stress at a cellular level, so you can kind of get a jump start on everything else, just reach out and just say private clients or one-on-one, or send me a message and talk as a human as well, and that will help you. So reduce inflammation. The second point would be to look at your food. Food here. So inflammation in any of these ways that you haven't been already. Food and stress. So reach out to me if you'd like any of those resources. If you'd like to just cut straight to the chase and get access to all of my resources, please go ahead. Or if you want to do the one-on-one work where we can really clear the bucket, also reach out to me. So hopefully that's been helpful to you. Inflammation equals symptoms, so anything we can do to reduce inflammation in the body will help reduce those inflammations and allow the body to come out of that sympathetic nervous system state, that chronic inflammation, fight or flight or freeze, into a parasympathetic nervous system state, which is the rest and digest state. It is the state that our bodies can naturally heal in. And you will notice once your child moves into this state, they will start to be able to heal themselves. Same with you if you're an adult watching this for yourself. Coming into the state, you'll notice it's such a difference just physically in your body, mentally, and from a health perspective, everything will just start to be easier. So it's been a pleasure chatting with you today, and I look forward to hearing back from you about what sort of resources you'd like. Bye for now.